Hey, ladies and gentlemen. So this is a summary from the interview that was taken today from Twitch with JC Bailey, the Novaquark CEO of Dual Universe. The game is right now on Kickstarter. It's doing quite well. We hope you would consider supporting the Kickstarter by checking the link in the description. It means a lot to everyone at Novaquark and all the Dual Universe fans. Including me. It means a lot to all of us if you would consider backing and supporting the game. So, this is a Q&A. I'm going to sum it up because it was quite long. It was an hour and a half. I'm going to try to do my best to kind of speed it along. So, question. The roadmap, what is this goals, requirements, etc. So the current roadmap they have is basically what's on Kickstarter. What's on the quick Kickstarter right now is release. So 2018 December, I believe it was. Those are the goals that they want to do by then. But it doesn't mean that there won't be other features, and there's a lot of smaller little features that might be added that you don't see on there, and things will change. But overall, that is what they have. For Alpha, their goal is to have basic building in, so you can just build a ship, etc. They want mining and scanning so you can find the materials. They want some basic crafting, but not all the crafting will be in. In fact, it sounded like a lot of crafting wouldn't be fully in at all. But what they'll set up is an NPC market system, which market systems are going to be controlled and done by players. But I think temporary for the alpha, they'll have one where you'll be able to buy, maybe it's unlimited or whatever, be able to buy things that you can't craft yet through the marketplace. A big part of the alpha, what they want to see is people actually using blueprints, production, and then selling them on the market. But not only that, they want to see how complex people make blueprints. I think that's a big, thing for the alpha. And then combat and territory is something that they want to add, but that is if they have time. What happened to the balloon ships? There was an idea to have balloon ships, sort of a low-tech idea. It's out of their scope right now. It's not out of the question, but it was out of the scope, and it's probably something that's not going to happen anytime soon. And it probably will not be... it'll probably be a solid idea for the fuel, because with the current tech and whatnot, it would make it easier if they were to do it. It was just brought up, so I thought I'd bring that into the conversation. Will you be able to build underwater? At this point, it's no, it's not even considered in a current future, but it's not something out of the question, but not right now. Also, they added, he talked about sort of a tier system in a sense. I'll call it a tier system, but there's a core component where they're going to add it for sure in the game, probably by launch, and then there was the intermediate, I think he said that feature was kind of hard. It kind of got cut off, which will be coming in expansions probably 6 months to a year. They're not paid expansions, by the way. And then the third one was, oh yeah, that's a good idea. So the building underwater was oh yeah, that was a good idea. And like I said, the expansions, maybe 6 months, 12 months, they're not paid. Everyone gets them. Don't worry about that. Okay, will there be weather? It's a good idea, but the biggest reason against it is basically the tech reason. It is a big, massive scale game, and the idea of, say, a hurricane were to happen, you'd want to be able to see the hurricane from space and things like that. That was an example, which I thought was awesome. It does sound like it's something they want, but tech-wise and current efforts are being used, of course, elsewhere. What about air and ships, basically? Walking around without masks, etc. That is something they want to tackle, but it is a good idea right now. One idea, a low-tech way for performance they're looking into is maybe a bubble. Basically, you place a construct on the ship that will provide the oxygen, and you are within that bubble area. You don't need to wear your mask. The idea of doing it like something really legitimate, where I think space engineers might be doing something like that, which is very broken. Calculations are really high on that. Just imagine doing a universe with, tens of thousands of players and doing the calculations server side. Yeah, that is kind of the reason why that's kind of more of a good idea, and there's a lot more taxing issues to it than just saying, sure, we can just do that easily, no problem. Will NQ provide API from the live game data Yes, they want to do that. I'm gonna say right now, from the question, it was basically a definitely yes. When, they're not sure. They would like it for release or after release, but they love the idea of people making apps and software for the game. They've seen it in Eve. They love the idea. They want it. Holidays. Will there be in-game holidays? Like, wow. No. I laughed so hard when I heard that one. The one thing that I found more interesting is they want you to be disconnected from the actual game. They don't want people to be basically, what did you think about the elections today or whatever? Or, well, in the real world, you can do this. And in the real world, you can do that. They want you to think this is like a parallel universe or galaxy or world or whatever. And they want you to think that, our world doesn't, exist. Of course, people are going to still chat about it in game and stuff. But they want you to think of like Halloween is not something that exists, basically. But player-made holidays? Boom, boom. You guys do it. That's the big part of the game. It's a sandbox. You can make your own type of holidays, even if it wants to be Halloween. What is the smallest detail of level? Oh, this one was an interesting one. I think the easiest way to sum this one up was EverQuest Landmarks, which he quoted himself saying, similar to that tech. Basically, you can make things very smooth or very pointy. You can use cubes, spheres, things like that. The limit is resolution, and it made it interesting. For constructs, it seemed to be about 25 centimeters, and for terrain or planets, it seemed to be about 1 meter. So that was kind of interesting. What are some influences for Dual Universe, or influences of Dual Universe, like from other games, books, etc.? It was mostly games. It was Eve. Eve was the biggest one. Minecraft was I would say the second, but a big part of it. In fact, he talked about Industrial Craft, one of my favorite mods, and the Feed the Beast pack. He didn't say which Feed the Beast pack he played, but clearly he played, I guess, one of the original Feed the Beast packs where Industrial Craft was part of it, and he really liked that. And they want to do something like more, complex industrial side of things over time. And we're quite inspired by that. There was also some movies and books. Overall, the movies where they were just big sci-fi fans. I was hard to hear the some of the titles from the interview. And then one of the books that he brought up a lot originally was Ready Player One, which was a book. And there was another one which I couldn't quite get the name, unfortunately. But yeah. Fanfiction Guidelines. When will we see them surface? Soon, but not had time yet. It sounds like that's something they want to do. It sounds like the community wants it, but they've been busy. I mean, with the Kickstarter and working on the game and getting more information out there and doing these interviews. An interview is an hour and a half, so it was awesome. Question: will we unlock new elements? Schemas, I think it was called, was the proper name for elements. You need a certain skill to use them. Some rare methods of discovering schemas, for example, through exploration. So you can explore the galaxy in a sense, and I guess you can find some of these schemas. They're looking forward to breaking the game in alpha. Oh yeah, this was sometimes there's a random, it's not a question, but he goes on a bit, and it's awesome. So one of the things is they're looking for people to break the game in alpha. They're not putting a call out, hey guys, we want you guys to come to our game just to break it. It's not a competition or whatever, but they're looking forward to people playing the game and breaking it, or trying to even sabotage it a bit just to see what happens and to even fix and treat these issues. So that was kind of cool, them being open about that. How will trespassers be treated? You can't stop anyone from trespassing. If they go on your land, that's it. But they will be flagged. A sort of two-part question on this, but yeah, basically they'll be flagged and they could be fired upon. Then there was, can we claim land around the Ark ship? Blah blah blah. Will there be a land rush? So this was surprising because this was talking about land around the Ark ship. And I think when people were bringing this question up, they meant around the bubble. But he actually says you can actually claim the land within the bubble itself, I guess, in the safe zone. But But before you think there's going to be a land rush, good luck. The idea is you would need, I guess, a territory unit or whatever. The territory unit itself is going to be very costly, very costly, basically, to the point where you're not going to just say, hey, I got a territory unit, let's just place it randomly like you would in many other games. You would probably reconsider where you place it. Not only that, they talked about real estate, and you can actually trade territory, and there will be a demand and supply for real estate, especially around the starting area, the Ark ship, because basically, it'd be a good recruiting place. Let's just say you place your ship down, or your territory there. You have a big building or recruitment office. Maybe you even have a couple players who work at that office, and they can sit there and say, hey, welcome, and things like that. And that was kind of cool. So what about territory in space? Will you be able to own, or, basically it sounded like, a lot of people are wondering, hey, can I just say I own this part of space? The answer is no. Can you actually own the territory in space, have your name labeled on it and stuff? Yes, over time you can. And the way, not fully in the game, or not in the game yet, but the idea of this, I should say. Remember, a lot of these are ideas or what their vision is if your organization or alliance owns, say, 70% of the land or real estate on a planet, the idea of it is that they can basically, own part of that space. Like maybe if your alliance owns 70%, I don't even know if it'd be territory or of the actual land claims on the planet, but maybe in space around the planet, it would say, you guys own this, and then you can have rights and management in space, saying, you could build a space station here, or you can, whatnot, if you get flagged when you enter into the space area. Well, I guess in a sense it wouldn't matter being even flagged, because no matter what, entering that area, but either way, it sounded like it could go even further, saying if you own that planet and the moon and several other planets, maybe you can own the entire system. That system would say it belongs to the blah, blah, blah alliance or organization, etc. So it sounds like they can go really far with that, but it was hard to kind of understand sometimes, JC, because he went on and on and on. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't a bad thing, but he likes to talk. He loves to be in detail. And that's why I would recommend listening to the original interview. But for people who wanted a quick, summary, that's why this is here. Exploration has its meanings. So he also talked about exploration has a lot of meaning. They want Stargates to be maybe, say, the first expansion. So 6 months, a year into it, they'll add the Stargates. It won't be right at launch. But exploration will have a lot of meaning to it, and they didn't quite elaborate too much in that, but they want meaning into it, meaning that I guess it'll be important for people who go out exploring, and it'll be a good thing for the explorers. Has NQ considered a CSM from EVE? I think that's like a community kind of like ideas and voting, and I'm not sure how that works. It sounds like a tribunal of some sort. Neat idea. Their worry was proper representation, but they might come up with something completely different. Might be similar. They're not sure at this time. Is there ways to automate turrets? No, not at the start. And they talked JC talked about this quite in detail. Like, he likes the idea, he doesn't like the idea because, it's nice to, protect your castle, but at the same time, this game is based on players. You should have players defending them, even if it's a new, member to your, organization or whatever. Maybe they're on guard duty in the tower. Maybe they should be the ones controlling it. So, in a sense, they don't want too much automation, and that was a big part of this. So, that was kind of interesting. I like that. I mean, and it also sounded like there would be no automated mining as well because of this. Can you mark players? Yes, you can tax players via the system, right? To mine certain elements and such. So basically, this sounds like more the land control. Originally, the question was actually within turrets. It says, can you have automated turrets, and can you mark players? I think it was more like put a bounty on somebody's name or something, or not even that, but say that guy's an enemy of our territory. But in a sense, it sounds like, yes, with the rights management, you can say, a certain faction is, not aligned to you guys or whatnot. And there's a elaborate system with that, even taxing players who, use, I guess, or buy from the market and things like that. Will players have a name above their head, or will you have to interact to know who they are? For now, it's going to be above their head. They want to be quite transparent with this. They were talking about things like maybe a particle scrambler, things like that. Maybe there would be a way to like scramble your name if you're really into that. But it sounded more like they wanted to be transparent. They don't see a need to hide your name. Will there be player-run banks like cargo? Will there be player-run banks? And they said yes. And they talked about it. Is it cargo digital, and your currency is digital. Your credits are on you, and if you die, you don't lose them. But they are looking into, and they would like to have player-run banks in the future. Ginkgo, was that from Second Life? Ginkgo. I had a lot of money in there, and I think I took it out before they went crazy. But the idea is like maybe if you invest, 100,000 credits into somebody, maybe you'll gain interest and stuff like that from it. So it sounds like there could be a lot of cool features from that, and it sounds like that's something they're willing to look into and even do. With the DAX, the subscription thing that you can buy and sell, I could see there being kind of like a really big market for digital banks, and that'll be kind of cool. What features will we have with market terminals? So if you own them, you can tax them. They're player-made, and there'll be buy and sell orders, sort of like EVE Online. And yeah, he kind of went onto it a bit more, but it was pretty much, the sort of like a detailed thing. And there sounds like there's much more to it, and he'll talk about that in the future. Will we be able to have lit or animated billboards? He likes the idea. Right now, it's basically like if they can find a simple tech where they can add it in the game and have like audio or video, sure, no big deal. But if they can't, I don't think they're going to touch it, and there's some limitations and issues in there. But they were even thinking of just a simple, like a simple sign or billboard where you can just put plain text on it. But even then, he said, maybe we could do LUA scripting, but then again, there could be problems with that, people overgoing, turning things on and off. He also talked about lights and, having a light sign and a bunch of lights placed to, say something. But then he talked about, turning them on and off, and there'd have to be limitations because they don't want to lag people. I mean, if you have hundreds of people standing around, you got these lights blinking and strobing and things like that. That's taxing to the server. And then there was another one. Will you be able to broadcast audio or video or holograms, LOL? Not investigated yet, but maybe. But basically the same idea as the above question, tech-wise. Will we be able to hail other player ships? This one's yes. You'll be able to hail other constructs. They were talking about also like a big screen and you can see them and stuff, but once again, limitations with the video streaming and things like that. What will blueprints look like? Will they tell us details, information, etc.? Yes. They can be stolen. They're a physical item. There's a blueprint master like you have in EVE, which you can make unlimited copies. And from there, you don't want to be an idiot and walk around with your master, be like, hey guys, I'm in this little PvP area. I got my master blueprint here because somebody will kick your ass and grab it. You can make copies of it. It also sounds like if you're an architect and you like making not making blueprints, but designs, you might actually get somebody who is more skilled into blueprints to make blueprint copies. So it looks like, even from there, there's two different jobs for somebody to do, and that's kind of cool. And of course, even more when you kind of, mass produce them, etc. The blueprints will show the materials that were required, things like that. If they have time, they'd also like to add a preview of the blueprint. So maybe when you hover over it or a special, shortcut or something you do, you can preview the blueprint and see it in a 3D model or something like that. And that's kind of cool. They also talked about snapshots. If things blow up, you can reconstruct them. I didn't know about this, and I don't know much information on it, but from what it sounds like, if you have a ship and it gets like totaled or almost totaled, the idea is you can't lose everything completely, or at least that's what it sounded like, but rather you can reconstruct them, and the data is stored in some sort of snapshots, and I guess you can rebuild or repair them. Don't know much about that, but when I do, I will bring them up. Is there going to be stellar anomalies, things like that? Nothing planned, maybe in the future. Is there going to be different types of weapon systems? He didn't really talk about different weapon systems like lasers, missiles, cannons, etc. He doesn't even know the names to give them, but he did talk about different damage types, different damage type armors, shields, or I should say different protection types, like armors and shields. And armors would be like different type of materials would help protect from different damage types, and different types of weapons with different damage types. And for balance, you can't be like the hybrid of all. You can't be the balance of a perfection or anything like that. You kind of pick and choose what you're going to be. So you might unfortunately in battle meet your maker because they have all, maybe the protection against all your weapons, but you have no defense against their weapons, for example, and it kind of makes it interesting anyways. The idea no winner take all configurations was basically the idea. He's talking about stretch goals, talking about ship to versus ship combat being one of the stretch goals soon. Questions: are they going to have working shield system? Of course, we already talked about shields 2 seconds ago, but yeah, they talked about modular shields, and right now it's just one global shield. Basically, you place down the shield unit, and then right now the idea is it protects the ship and be a big bubble around the ship that protects it. They also talked about randomly during this part, one user piloting a massive ship would be incredibly what was the term? Inefficient or even maybe impossible to do. So that was interesting. How are Stargates made? Basically, it's a construct to create the Stargate. One construct only. He kind of really went on this one. I kind of lost my attention span, but it basically sounds like it's a very expensive construct. You only need one construct, and then you can design or build your gate from there. What are ways to generate or store power? He kind of talked about industrial craft here once again, but it didn't sound like you're going to be using coal or oil to produce power right now. It sounds like power is going to be produced by maybe one or. It sounded like you wanted a whole production unit and a whole production chain, but it also sounded like there might be only one fuel from the start, and then they'll go further. And they talked about powerful things like nuclear power, but then having to disperse of the heat and things like that, and it kind of got a little more complex on that. But it sounded like right now it was going to be just like kind of one power right to start with. Will elements be real or fictional? So basically periodic table, things like that. It's going to be a combo of fictional resources and real resources, because you don't want to have to explain basically, well, this resource which is real can't do this and blah blah blah. So fictional resources help talk maybe about shield technology and stuff like that. We'll be able to automate ship production. Automating will be an instant thing. Not an instant thing. I was like, did I read that wrong or write it wrong? I know it wasn't an instant thing. They don't really want players to be able to just mass automate things. This is going again with player interaction. It sounds like you'll have to push some buttons and do some things for it to work. Keep monitoring it, being there. I'm not quite sure exactly, but it sounds like they just don't want it completely automated. Can you give us some hints on tech? What will we see in the game? Many directions, different types of engines. So this one was probably the best part of it all. Different functions, like for example, atmospheric thrusters, space engines. Maybe I'll just say ion engines. I don't think that was one of them. He didn't say ion engines or anything, but if you played Space Engineers, you could think of ion engines. And then he talked about hybrid engines, both of them, but they wouldn't be as efficient, which kind of sounds cool because it reminds me of like, undocking from your mothership with a shuttle that's meant to go from the planet to the surface, or to the surface and back to the mothership or whatever, and those would be probably good for it. You even talked about, certain engines. You might have multiple of those engines on one big ship, and you would shut some of them down. So, for example, if you had this really big ship, I guess the hybrid engines are really not that good at all. But if you had a really big ship, you probably would have atmospheric thrusters on there. But when you're not using atmospheric thrusters, you're in space, you'd completely shut them down. And then he talked about another kind of tech of like different type of control units, like for piloting. You would have dedicated piloting like engines, gyroscopes, etc., which was kind of interesting. And then went into short questions basically from the community. It was like 4 of them. Mining ships, nope. Mining is for people. I love that answer. That's back to the whole automation stuff. He doesn't want everyone to be just automating everything and being an AFK game. Offline protection, short answer, no, but not ruled out in the long term. If a construct is attacked, you'll be notified. Question, will Lua script be in game? Apparently it's already implemented. I was a little iffy on that when I heard it, but it sounds like there's not like UI proper in the game and might not be even right away, but you'll be able to do it through a file, notepad, or whatever you want to use outside of the game, and just drop a file in a folder for it. So that's kind of cool. And the last question, will their ships behave the same as StarMade? Do they have a physical, connected, etc.? Okay, so this one he's talking about basically if you have a big long ship and if I split it in 2, will the ship break apart? The answer is no, it will still be connected as one. So this is kind of cool, those cool like looking at anime ships that you see in movies and shows and games and things like that. You could make some cool things like that. The reason for this is it's one big mesh, and they just don't want taxing reasons. They don't want it to break into hundreds of pieces, because you have one battle and hundreds of pieces of that come out, the taxing, and it's just not worth it. Which makes sense. I mean, I agree with that. And they also talked about, on terrain land, if you were to break a hole in the terrain and would the land collapse down, and no, it would float like you would see in Minecraft. So yeah, anyways, I tried to sum up the interview of an hour and a half, and I didn't do too bad. 26 minutes, 27 minutes, let's say 30 minutes. And it wasn't bad. I'm really interested in the game. I'm looking forward to it a lot. I really, really wish I could afford the Ruby package. This game is amazing. And if I wasn't eating can of beans for my meals, I would be like backing the Ruby package. And trying to give you an idea. Like, I'm a person who lately has been, very cautious about backing. But this guy is very honest, very transparent. He's definitely a down to earth person, and I really like him. I would like to shake his hand, just say, this is awesome, like you're somebody who we need more in the gaming industry. And of course, there's going to be, warning. People are like, well, you still haven't had the game in your hand and it hasn't released yet and stuff. And of course, there's always a cautious warning, but I think this one is worth backing. I think these guys are awesome. And yeah. Anyways, guys and girls, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, comment, like for more Dual Universe in the future.